Hey everyone, my name is Shanice and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be reviewing both the book Lady in the Lake by Laura Lippman, which was released in 2019, and also the most recent TV adaptation, which is out on Apple TV Plus, starring Natalie Portman and Moses Ingram and a slew of other actors. I have to tell you, I have not been picking the best books to compare to whatever adaptations they have. I think the best one I have read so far is Elena Knows. I actually really love that book, and the movie adaptation was pretty good as well. The others have sort of been flops. Well, actually, no. Tess of the D'Urbervilles, hated the book, but the movie was solid. But other than that, it's been kind of a miss. This is not really an exception to that rule, so let me just dive right in with my thoughts on both the book and the TV show, starting with the book. So as I said, it came out in 2019. This story is loosely based on two true events that happened, in which a young Jewish girl went missing and then was subsequently found murdered, and then a black woman who went missing and was also found murdered in a lake, in a fountain in the middle of a lake. Both of these happened in Baltimore. Laura Lippman grew up around Baltimore. Also, her father was a newspaperman. He was a journalist. So this book and its themes, I think she already has a lot of insight on because of her father and her own nonfiction journalistic work. So to give you a general sense of what the book is about, we follow Maddie. She is married to Milton, has a son named Seth, and she's very unhappy and unsatisfied. In the beginning of the novel, we hear that a young girl has gone missing. She is a young Jewish girl. Maddie is Jewish, her husband and her family, her whole roots are Jewish, and so this strikes her community, but she is really more interested in the investigative side. She helps search for the body. Ultimately, she helps find the body. She is one of the two people who finds the body, and from that she is getting asked by the police and journalists questions about how she found the body, and this brings her back to the time when she was in high school and worked on the paper and always had these aspirations to be someone big and professional in the world of journalism, or just in any way to take her writing to the next level. She started a family like a lot of women, and that kind of, her dreams got sidetracked and her focus became family, but that drive and that desire never left her, so she makes an abrupt decision in the beginning of the book to get a divorce and leave her family and start a new life to follow her dreams of joining a newspaper and being a journalist. Writing wise, for me, this book is fine. I think it's solid, competent. I can already tell that Lippman has a more of a nonfiction lean. I think a lot of her more fictional observations and insights can be surface level. This is like a good starter book for people who maybe haven't read too much into books about race or books about gender or discrimination in some way. I think if you have experience with that, this might seem a little bit been there, done that. And again, some of the observations are not as astute as maybe the book thinks they are. So it's good for a general audience, but maybe not a niche audience. We take a look at the 1960s in Baltimore, specifically from a lens of a Jewish woman, and then through the voice of a murdered woman who was found in the middle of the lake that Maddie uses as a way for her to reach her journalistic dreams. So we get that dead woman's perspective interspersed throughout Maddie, a Jewish woman's perspective. So we see Baltimore from two sides. I think Cleo, who is the murdered black woman, I think her voice is essential to this novel. Maddie is very problematic. I don't think in the end she was challenged enough. I think we see what a lot of people do to reach their dreams, to gain success, and that often means using and abusing people, leaving them in the dust, being cruel, being selfish. That tends to be glorified and uplifted in our society. Typically men do it, and I think the book took the opportunity to make a woman do the same things that men do and gain success, and then have the reader question why they think this particular woman's case is worse. I guess as a reader, I don't think it's particularly worse. I think it's just as bad. And I don't think just because she's a woman, it suddenly makes her calculations any better. I think Cleo's voice was much needed to question Maddie's intentions throughout. Aside from Maddie's point of view and Cleo's point of view, we also get a bunch of side characters' points of view, random people that Maddie meets. And this was a kind of a problem because it was wholly unnecessary, and also because it's not like the new characters were from different timelines or different scenes. A lot of the time the characters were within the same scene, and then we switch to a new perspective, and then we'd get the scene repeated but from another perspective, which just stopped the momentum of the book. Yes, there's a benefit to just getting a scene from another point of view, but it's also like, give us more details, give us something new. You know, there was one perspective from another female journalist, and I guess the perspective of hers was just to show us how hard it was for women in journalism. I don't think we needed that perspective to know. I think that was very clear from Maddie's point of view and just from history altogether. Maddie enters an interracial relationship in the novel, which I just found a little bit unbelievable. I just don't see how, I guess, someone of Maddie's socioeconomic background would be so open-minded, if you will, in the 60s to date someone outside of her race. Maybe she really was that progressive and just normal to fall in love with people for who they are and not what they look like in terms of race, but I don't know. I have my doubts. I don't know if it was just too glossy and kind of fantastical, but something about the relationship never felt real to me. Also, the person that she falls in love with just seems a bit stereotypical. There were some, raunchy scenes that I just felt like I was reading stereotypes. However, even though I found some flaws with the book, it kept me reading, despite a few pacing problems because of the shifting points of view. I just wanted to find out what was going on, and I didn't love the twist at the end. I think it's one of those books that's more invested in shocking you with the twist than making the twist realistic. But hey, it didn't bring the book down way too much, but ultimately I did give it 2.5 stars. I will say I heard this podcast with the author, and she's very transparent in her writing process and what she was trying to do with this book. She was trying to interrogate cultural appropriation. She knew she was a white writer writing from different racial and economic and gender perspectives, which I can respect. And she said that she didn't really think she was coming up with an answer. She was just, this book is like her process of deconstructing that and working through that question of who can write from whose point of view. And I thought the book did pretty well with that. I will say I heard the book via audiobook as well as, reading it physically. The narrator, Susan Bennett, she is white, and so she was doing the voices of all of the characters, including Cleo. So, it took me aback a little bit. I'm not sure why they couldn't just hire a few actors to play different people. But it wasn't that egregious that I stopped listening, but it was just something I had to stop and, as I was listening to it, just double check what the narrator looks like, to see if there's anything problematic going on. But anyway, ultimately I gave it 2.5 stars. And then moving on to the Apple TV Plus TV series, which is 7 episodes created by Alma Har'el. She directed Honey Boy a few years ago with Shia LaBeouf, and so here she takes a loose adaptation of the novel. You have the backbone of Maddie leaving her family to become a journalist, falling in love with a black cop played by, I forget the actor's name, but he's from Insecure as well as many other things, but he was Daniel on Insecure. We get socioeconomic gender politics of 1960s Baltimore in here, but jam-packed with what I think Alma Har'el and maybe the other producers and creators wanted to do, which was pack it with social commentary on every single possible thing to contextualize the main storyline. I don't think that really worked to it in its favor. I think it cluttered the plot. Maddie had this high school crush, and that storyline just, they twisted it to fit another storyline to kind of talk about abortion issues and sex within the Jewish religion and inappropriate relationships with great age gaps, abuse of power from older men and teens, essentially. So I don't know why that was needed. The story itself, I think, worked really well on its own, and I understand contextualizing and making the city and the time period more textured. It became too much. There were even dance numbers. I felt like I was watching a Baz Luhrmann movie or an episode of Euphoria where Zendaya just randomly starts singing and dancing. It's like weird. Cleo's storyline also just took a turn. Now we get gambling, now we get more of like a gangster movie and like political assassinations, and sure, there is a humanity to the characters and the way they treated all of them. It kind of, as the episodes went by, I can imagine someone who hasn't read the book not knowing what the hell the story was about. Like, who's the lady in the lake? Why is this TV show called this? And like, what is this about? Is it going to be about the gambling? Is it going to be about politics? Is it going to be about Maddie and journalism? Is it going to be a murder investigation? Is it going to be a police procedural? Is it going to be a race drama? Is it going to be an interracial romance? Is it going to be a teenage angsty movie? It's crazy. It was too much. Yes, the characters were fleshed out, but at what cost? Also, the cinematography was so dark you could barely see anything. I did appreciate though that this TV show was a little bit more critical on Maddie than the novel was. The novel in the end we do get a non-apology from Maddie to her fans where she kind of says, I don't feel like I should take responsibility for what I did because so many other people do this and that to gain success, and I did it, so like why should I be singled out? Just a little bit of a cop-out. The show didn't really do that. She was very much questioned by the people of color around her. There was more attention to actual Jewish-Black relations in the 1960s that were more realistic. You get from the good to the bad, from the collaborative to the enemies. I thought it was much more nuanced, and I did appreciate that. Moses Ingram, Natalie Portman, oh god, I'm really bad at actors' names, but the actor who plays Milton, Maddie's ex-husband, is the guy from Fleabag, the husband to Fleabag's sister, so her brother-in-law. It's always interesting to see him in something. Also, he was on Stranger Things. I forgot to mention there was also a section that talked about Seventh-day Adventists and medical experimentation in the military. I felt like my brain was spinning. I happened to be reading Medical Apartheid by Harriet A. Washington when I was reading this book, so it was just a coincidence that the nonfiction amplified what I was seeing in the show, but I don't know why it needed to be in the show whatsoever. I think this would have worked as like a 3 to 4 episode genuine adaptation of whatever was happening in the novel We didn't need all of this extra stuff, all of these choreographed dance numbers. We just didn't need it. We had a great cast, great creators at the helm. So ultimately I gave it 2 stars just for how it worked as an adaptation and my enjoyment of it. I feel really bad about it because I was really excited. Like, I dropped the book that I was going to do this month and the movie I was going to then watch as an adaptation for this, because I didn't even know that this TV show was based on a book. But I love Natalie Portman and she's great and everything, so I just wanted to go in and watch this, and then I saw that it was about journalism and like murder and crime, but it was a letdown, unfortunately. So I would say read the book instead of watching the TV show. I think things will make more sense. Yeah, please, I'm crossing my fingers next month is more successful. I think it will be. I've heard tons of great things about the novel. The show, I think, got mixed reviews, but at the very least one of the 2 should be excellent. So let's see. But for this month of August, putting a little check mark on Lady in the Lake. If you have read it or seen the show, let me know your thoughts down below. Have you read anything else by Laura Lippman? Should I bother? I'm not sure if her style is for me, but I really liked the feeling of reading a book and like not wanting to put it down and wanting to see how it ended. I haven't had that in a moment. So let me know your thoughts down below, and I will see you all next time. Bye.